Hello everyone, my name is Gabor Spielmann and welcome to the Global Med Academy's first session. I'm going to talk about the creative work in general. I'm going to introduce you to the process of the work, and I want to give you a very basic picture about what it is like to work in an advertising agency, which I think is one of the best work in the world, one of the best job for you. So I try to give you something. I try to teach you something that later might be useful for you if you really want to work in advertising. Okay, just a very few words about me. I've been a creative director since 2001. I've been working in small agencies, middle agencies, the biggest agencies in Hungary, where I'm from. I've been working for Ogilvy, I've been working for Gray, and now I have my own agency. Besides work, I mean everyday work, I really think it's important for young guys to give opportunity to prove themselves in the field of advertising. So I also founded the first Cannes Lion competition in Hungary. Maybe later I will talk a little bit about Cannes Lions, about the festivals in general. I'm also the ambassador, actually I've been for 5 years the ambassador of the New Stars in Hungary. So I'm the first New Stars preliminary competition in Central Eastern Europe as well. Okay, so basically, like I told you before, it's going to be a general introduction to give a quick view about how the creative process is usually being made and how different jobs relate to them. I could talk a lot. I could talk for hours about what it feels like to work in an advertising agency. The culture of the advertising agencies differ from agency to agency. So I'm not sure all the agencies will follow the same process. All the agencies have the same structure. Actually, probably not. But the basics, the most important things are the same. So even digital communication is a great leap, and it's something new and important thing. It's happening to us, but the concept, the idea, the creative power is still the same. So I try to give you a very general view about the work in an agency. Okay, listen and learn. The most important thing is to listen. Even now you're listening to a seminar, so probably you're interested in advertising already. But if you feel like advertising is for you, I really encourage you to listen all the time. Not only professional blogs, or not only something related to advertising very closely, but you have to be curious about the world. You have to be curious about how people's psychology works. So you have to be open-minded, curious, and you have to always listen. It's true for all territories of life, but for advertising, I think it's paramount. Okay, so what it is like to work in an advertising agency. I try to make it really short and really brief, so you only get the most important points. What we are doing in an advertising agency is getting the clients, the companies, or the service providers briefs, come up with ideas, and turn them into something commercially valuable. We do it in different phases. We do it with different people, different jobs. different process. I really try to make it as short and as simple as I can get. Okay, so this is just basically the introduction. This seminar will only give you basic thought about what it's to be working in an advertising agency. I split up the jobs in an agency in two. Okay, of course, this is an exaggeration, but these two parts are the most important in any advertising agency. So one is the creative department. The creative department is the one that is actually producing. So like in a factory, there are the machines that are actually making the products. So we are using our head, we are using our brain, we are using our knowledge, and we are creating things, we are producing things. The creative department also consists of many different jobs, many different people. Like if you talk about copywriters, probably you know what copywriting is about. It's not only wording of the advertising, it's not only headlines or slogans, but it's also about the general idea we call creative concept. Okay, the creative concept is basically the idea how we want to communicate about a product or a service to the target group, to the consumers. Okay, and we have the art directors, graphic designers, however you call them, who actually have the visuality, have the visual power to make the creative concept, to make the thought work in real life, in advertising. It doesn't matter what media we are talking about. It can be from a standard print media to any application. You need to have a thought, you need to have some words, some copy, and you need to visualize somehow. Okay, so we can call them web designers, we can call them art directors. It's all about the same thing, that we are talking to people, we are talking to consumers, and we want to talk to them in a way like we communicate to them even on the street. You talk to them, it's important what you tell to them, it's important the message, and it's important how you tell them these messages. So basically, there are many other jobs in an ad agency. I just don't want to get into details because this video is short, too short to give you all the information. I just want to give you the basics. Okay, so the creative department is the one that is coming up with ideas and executing the ideas in a way. Of course, the creative department is also in relation with the client, but the focus is not on the relationship with the client, but the focus is on the creative concept, the idea, and how you make it happen, how you come up with a line, and how you visualize it. Okay. The other big group is client service. We call them account directors, client service directors. They know a lot about advertising. They are professionals, but they are not really into creating things. They are more like helping the client and helping the creative department to find the common platform. Okay, so even though the creative department is in touch with the client more or less, okay, but the focus to be in a good relationship with the client, to understand the client's need and to sell the creative concept is for the client service. They are somehow at the first point of the work process and at the last point of the work process. The first point is they are the one who have to understand the brief. They have to understand exactly what the client wants, because the creative people have to have a very, very exact knowledge about what they have to do. Okay, client service is giving them this information. And also client service is coming into the picture at the last point. So after the work is being done, after the creative concept is being developed, and we have the visuals and we have the headlines, we have the ideas, the client service is the responsible, not the only responsible, because it's not black and white, but they are mostly responsible to somehow show it to the client. They say to sell it to the client, which I don't like. I don't like this phrase, because you don't have to sell this to your client. You just have to make the client love it. And if the creative concept is good, the client service has a very easy job, which shows you consequently that the client service and the creative department have to work together hand in hand. And if this work is good, in this case, probably the outcome will be also good. There is this typical problem or misunderstanding between the creative department and the client service department. The client service is trying to give too much effort to understand what the client wants, and is not giving enough freedom for the creative department. And the creative people sometimes want to come up with thoughts which are maybe really creative, maybe they are really cool ideas and could work very well, but somehow the client is not interested in this. And the client service is the one that has to find the balance, that has to help how to make the client understand why the creative concept is working. Okay, so it's really important. The most important thing is the client service and the creative department. They really have to work together well. I've seen many examples in agencies, in all agencies, that if this work is not is far from ideal, I would say, then unfortunately the client will not be happy, the product will not be as good as it could be. So it's one of the most important things that the creative people and the client service should somehow find the common voice and understand each other's interests and each other's thoughts. Okay, and now we go to the creative process. Like I said, I've been working as a creative director for a long time. Of course, I can talk about the process on the client side, on the client service side. But this time, this seminar is more focused on the creative process, on the creative work. So I just want to talk about the creative process and not really about the first and the last step of the work in the agency. The creative process basically starts with the so-called brief. Okay, the brief is the task that comes from the client, goes through the client service, and about the client service, first the client and the client service have to come to the same terms and find out what exactly they want, how exactly they want to communicate, in which media they want to communicate. They have to give as many information as possible. Once they have this information, they put it on a paper called brief. Okay, it's called brief because it should be short, it should be simple. Because if you give too much information for the creative people, they're going to be confused. So it's important to make the brief as short and as clear as possible. Clear is more important than short, but once the creative team gets the task, gets the brief, they have to understand what exactly they have to do, in which style they have to do it, what they can say, what they cannot say. So this is the most important thing. This is the basic, the brief. Okay, so a few words about the brief. I will shortly show you a real example of a brief, how it looks like. But before that, I want to talk a little bit about the creative process again. Okay, so let me go back to the creative process. I forgot to mention you that after the brief, of course, naturally, once the creative know the task, they start to work and they come up with the creative concept. Okay, sometimes they call it communication concept, creative concept, idea. It depends on what wording the agency uses, but basically they have to come up with a thought. Okay, not a slogan or not a headline or not a visual, but a thought. Sometimes we try to feel what the consumer would want to hear, how we can relate to them, how we can make an impact. This is called insight. So basically, we just want to understand the consumer, and we want to understand the thinking of the consumer, and we want to give a relevant answer to that. Okay, then we start to think, then we come up with a creative concept, which is the idea. Okay, let's call it very simply the idea. Once we have the idea, the basic idea, the concept, the creative concept, then we try to work it out. We find the proper wording, we find the proper visual icons. It can be many things. In different media, you use different tools. So once again, I'm sorry, but I just can't get to details right now. This is just the introduction. So please be satisfied with that. We come up with visuals, we come up with slogans, we come up with wording, headlines, etc. And once we have it together, once we've worked out the details, we make a presentation, and ideally, together with the client service, we try to present it to the client personally, if possible. So in very short, that's the creative process. We get the brief from the client service, we start to work on the creative concept, the idea, and then we work out the idea visually or verbally in all possible way. And then we make a presentation and we kind of try to make the client understand what we mean by our creative concept. We present it, we explain it. Sometimes they say that we sell it, okay? And in very short, that is the process. And now let's get back to the brief, which is the first point, which is the most important point of the creative process. Because if the brief is not good, if the brief is not clear, then the whole process is already. You actually cannot do proper work if the brief is bad, or if the brief is too complicated, or the brief doesn't contain the necessary information. Then you're done. You can't progress. Okay, so like when you're building a house, you start to build it from the bottom, and this is the basics. Okay, now let's see how the creative brief looks like. Like you see, we have certain kind of data, like when you have to present to the client, when is the first internal review, which means when is the time when the creative department presents the work to the client service department. When they talk about it, we have different information about the media, about the airing. Okay, so this is basically the mandatory things. Okay, then the next thing is, what is the key insight? The insight is, I've already talked about how the client relates to this. So, for example, now we are talking about a prepaid telecommunication service. It's not a real one, okay? It's a fictional one. Just to give you an example. So we say, well, there is an incredible offer that I can only get for 4 weeks. I need to go now. Okay, so now we try to think how the consumer relates to this. Then the next question, why are we advertising? It says, T-Phone would like to get new prepaid customers X thousand subscriptions during the campaign. Okay, so this is the reason, this is the client's main goal. Who are we talking to? Now we have to define the target group. The target group means the group of people who we want to communicate to, the most important thing. So, okay, if you have a product that is for youngsters, you don't communicate to old people, and vice versa. Okay, I'm not going to read it up. You will have this presentation, so you will have time to read it all. Basically, we are talking about the details about the target group's way of life, how they behave, what they do, where they go, how they spend their time, how they think. So we have to know as much about the target group as possible. This is why I told you at the beginning of the presentation that you have to listen and learn all the time. You have to be curious. You have to know different type of people. You have to understand their motivation, their thinking, because you never know what kind of target group you have to talk to. And you have to be ready to talk to young women and old men, or people with better status and people with worse status. Okay, so this is the target groups. The next one is, what is the single most important thing we want to say to them? Okay, guys, this is the message. This is the most important part of the brief. I would say it's about the essence of advertising, what you want to say, okay? Now, it's not important who you talk to, how you talk to, what you want to say. And you have to make it as simple as possible, because the target group is normally too busy in their life, and they are not open to complicated thoughts and long and not very easily codable messages. So try to make the message as short as possible. In this case, it's a promotion. We say limited edition prepaid tariff with very low flat rate, 25 forints. It's not a really creative message because it's a promotion. It focuses on the offer. It's an offer-based message, and it's talking you with a rational benefit, and the rational benefit is that it's a low flat rate. Okay, but this message could be totally different. It can be an emotional message in certain ways. It could be the mixture of emotions and rational messages, but it has to be very clear what you want to say with your communication. Okay, next one, why should they believe this? When we talk about it, basically we want to give them a kind of reason why. Why are we credible? Why would they want to believe what we are talking? So, for example, here we are talking about facts because it's a promotion and it's a rational thing. We are just giving them data and information, credible and objective information, so that they see that our offer is really the best on the market. Okay, what tone of voice should we use? Now we are talking about the style. The next most important thing of the message, of what we want to say, the next most important thing is how we want to say this, okay? The style or the tone of voice is the same. Like when you're talking to a person, to a friend, or to a relative, or to anyone, it's really important what you say to them, and the next most important thing is how you say it to them. Okay, so now we are talking about how you communicate. For example, here we are talking to younger people, so we can be humorous, we can be energetic, we can be creative, we can be friendly, simple, and honest. So these words kind of give you a concept, give you a thought about how you want to come up with your idea, how you want to visualize it, and it has to be humorous, energetic, creative, friendly, etc. Okay, in different cases it can be totally the opposite. So you always have to understand the task, the message, the target group, and of course the style, so they all come together well and fit together well. And there are some mandatories. These mandatories are usually about, for example, if you are talking about TVC, like a TV commercial, we are talking about how long it could be. It could be 10, 15 seconds or 30 seconds. We know about the different type of media. If it's this one is an old brief, it's an offline brief. So now we are talking about an outdoor, and we want to come up with billboards and city light posters, and we might come up with some ambient media ideas. Okay, so these mandatories are the one that come from the client, or come from the client and the client service together, and they say that, guys, you can come up with any ideas, but please keep in mind that these are the mandatories. Your idea should fit in a, let's say, 15 seconds TV commercial. Okay, if you have a very complicated and long idea, maybe it's really good, but if it doesn't fit the media, if it's not possible to make a 15-second commercial, then it's not working. Okay, and then of course you have about some dates and the timing of it. And thank you guys for your attention. This was a really short introduction. The next sessions will be more concrete. We'll focus more on each way, how you have to come up with these ideas, what you have to keep in mind during this creative process. So this was just a very general, I'll give you a very general view about how it's to be in an advertising agency. Thank you, guys.